Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, March 20th. Today is day 166 since October 7th. Today, I wanted to talk about the hunger crisis in Gaza. I've said before, there was a humanitarian crisis in Gaza before the October 7th attacks by Hamas in southern Israel. But today I wanted to talk about what many people are saying could be an acute famine, certainly in North Gaza. This week, reports were issued that announced what's called the IPC numbers. IPC stands for the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Scale, IPC scale. This is an acute food insecurity measurement tool. It was a landmark in being able to fight against global hunger. And this tool or mechanism, it's widely accepted by the international community. It's a 5-phase scale that provides common standards for classifying the severity of acute food insecurity. It's based on common standards and language. The scale is intended to help governments and other humanitarian actors be able to quickly understand how severe a situation is, how acute food insecurity might be, or anticipated food insecurity, so that actors, humanitarian agencies or governments can take action. And so the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC scale, for acute food insecurity was announced as of March 15th. The time period that was analyzed was for the month between March 15th. The time period that was analyzed was between February 15th and March 15th. 2024, 95% of the population of Gaza was considered. So that's a population of about 2.13 million people of the entire population of Gaza. And of this 5-point scale, 0 people were found to be in complete food security. That's the color green on the scale. That's people who have no needs. All their vitamins are met. They have access to complete water and the necessary nutrients. Phase 2, 96,000 people were found to be people who are stressed. And then the rest of that 2.13 million people were phase 3 or above, phase 3, phase 4, or phase 5. More than 500,000 people, 578,000 people were found to be people in crisis. 876,000 people are people in emergency. That's a red category in need of urgent action. Phase 5, 677,000 people in catastrophe. These numbers are unprecedented globally. People facing high acute food insecurity in phase 3 or above, these numbers are just exorbitant. And what's projected from the phase of March 16th through July 2024, when you look at those numbers, 0 people will be below phase 1 and phase 2. All of the population of Gaza, it is projected, will be in phase 3, 4, and 5. After July, that unless things change significantly, and that doesn't just mean these trickles of aid, that doesn't just mean airdrops, that doesn't mean, what's been happening up until now, the entire and at this point, it says 100% of the population of Gaza will be phase 3 or above. And by July, the anticipated number of those in catastrophe, the number that's showing in phase 5 is 1.1 more. It's 1,107,000 people will be at that highest level of the IPC scale after July, is what's projected in terms of food insecurity. So when we talk about a humanitarian catastrophe, and when we talk about famine in North Gaza, and when we talk about, the fact that people already are starting to die of lack of access to water and dehydration, this crisis is beyond acute. And that's really, really important to understand. Humanitarian agencies are saying this is unprecedented in terms of the number of people that are being affected. And this is not being caused by by Mother Nature. This is being caused by a humanitarian catastrophe. This is being caused by a government cutting off food, water, and electricity. This is being caused, the number of deaths is being caused by bombing and ground invasion and violence. And our response at Churches for Middle East Peace is that we must continue to call for a comprehensive ceasefire. And we must call, wherever we live in the world, we must call on our governments to say enough rhetoric. We have got to start to put action behind our words. So I wanted to give just an update of a bit of other news. The UK, their Foreign Secretary David Cameron said it is vital for a truce in Gaza to secure the release of Israeli hostages. We are calling for their release as well. But conditions first need to be met for a lasting ceasefire. We are calling for a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire as well. The Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, Oliver Dowden, defended Israel's right to protect itself, but called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza on humanitarian grounds. More than 2,000 tons of foods crossed into Gaza via Jordan. It has been distributed by the United Nations World Food Program to families in need. The World Food Program Chief McCain said that there's a very small window left to prevent an outright famine in Gaza. We just talked about those facts and details. The head of the emergency committee in charge of aid distribution was killed in Gaza City, reports said today. CENTCOM said that it conducted a joint airdrop of aid into North Gaza with the Royal Jordanian Air Force and a Saudi-funded humanitarian agency, pledged to boost Riyadh's funding to UNRWA by $40 million, a statement said today. The death toll in Gaza is now just under 32,000 people. It's at 31,923 Palestinians killed, according to the health ministry. And the number of those injured is at 74,096 people wounded. In terms of the hostage ceasefire negotiations, a Hamas official, senior official, said that Israel responded to their latest proposal negatively after mediators handed it over. So no progress in that regard. Family members of Israelis killed in the October 7th attacks handed, quote, dismissal letters from the people, end quote, to members of Prime Minister's coalition in the Knesset. Family members of hostages held in Gaza handed out food baskets to lawmakers containing a quarter of pita, 2 olives, and a tablespoon of white cheese each. That is the daily allowance allotted to hostages in captivity. In the United States, there are rifts within the Biden administration regarding certifying Israel's commitment to fully facilitate the flow of aid into Gaza, according to U.S. officials. Secretary of State Blinken has until Sunday to approve Israel's stance delivered earlier this week to the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Liu, or the United States will immediately suspend weapons transfers. So that is speaking about the presidential security memorandum. So what they're talking about is Israel had to certify that weapons are being used in accordance with international humanitarian law. I'm assuming that's what that's talking about. So that was just a summary. I will find out more about that. But that memorandum went into effect, and Blinken had until the end of March to certify that. Hours before Prime Minister Netanyahu, he is supposed to address Senate Republicans via video, and Minority Leader Mitch McConnell sharply attacked Democrats for egregious and hypocritical attempts to influence Israeli domestic politics. That's in response to Chuck Schumer's comments. The U.S. House Speaker Johnson said he had a lengthy conversation with Netanyahu and expressed his strong disagreement with the comments that Schumer made last week. Netanyahu is House Republicans are considering inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu to address a joint session of Congress, according to Republican officials. I don't know if you recall, but it used to be that when you would get a tour of the Capitol building, it used to be that Prime Minister Netanyahu had the most standing ovations ever in the history of a speech given at the U.S. Capitol building. He had the most standing ovations. I can't remember if it was 37 or something like that. So it would be quite a big deal if Prime Minister Netanyahu came and spoke to Congress, because my understanding is the reason his counterpart came a few weeks ago was because he was not invited to come and speak with President Biden. So 18 Senate Democrats urged President Biden to outline a path for the U.S. to recognize a non-militarized Palestinian state. And U.S. Secretary of State Blinken landed in Saudi Arabia yesterday and will head to Israel on Friday after stopping in Egypt, according to a U.S. official. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin will host his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant next week for a bilateral meeting at the Pentagon, according to an American defense official. Prime Minister Netanyahu said preparations for the ground offensive in Rafah will take some time, and Israeli police officers forcibly dispersed anti-government protesters who were blocking entrances to the Knesset. 5 demonstrators were arrested. Israeli Arab lawmaker Ayman Odeh was expelled from the Knesset plenum after saying what the Israeli army is doing in Gaza is murder. It is a massacre, and it is the starvation of children. The Houthis are continuing to be active. A French Navy helicopter destroyed a Houthi combat drone in the southern Red Sea to protect merchant ships. It was reported by an EU mission in the Red Sea. So that's an update for today. Our Gaza ceasefire pilgrimage is happening in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. I've been told by my doctor I'm not permitted to walk all 22 miles, but my husband and I are kind of fighting about that a bit. He says I should take care of my health, but I will be there for the vigils along the way, and will be participating as much as I'm able. I'm so grateful for the Gaza ceasefire pilgrimages that are happening around the world. Continue to call for an end to all violence and to call for a comprehensive ceasefire, a release of the hostages, immediate and adequate humanitarian assistance, and that we look toward and work toward a comprehensive resolution to the core issues that have gone on for far too long.